This is the official number, 2,264 tons. That's what the People's Bank of China reports as their gold reserves. It's the number that appears in IMF statistics, the number that Western analysts cite when calculating China's reserve composition, the number that suggests China holds about 5% of its foreign reserves in gold, far below the 60 to 70% held by the United States and Germany. For 15 years, that number has seemed strange, too small, too static, updated sporadically, sometimes going years without change, then jumping by a few hundred tons in a single announcement. Analysts have speculated that the real number is higher, that China acquires gold through state-owned enterprises that don't report to the central bank, that military reserves exist outside civilian accounting. Last Thursday, we stopped speculating. At 4:15 a.m. Eastern, January 16, 2026, a file appeared on a Chinese government server that was never meant to be public. An internal People's Bank of China document cataloging strategic monetary metal reserves across all state entities. The file was online for 47 minutes before being removed. In that window, it was downloaded by 3 financial research firms, a sovereign wealth fund analyst, and at least one Western intelligence service. The number in that document was not 2,264 tons. It was 33,814 tons. 33,814 metric tons of gold. At current prices, that's $4.1 trillion, more than the United States, more than Germany, Italy, France, and Russia combined, more than the officially reported reserves of every nation on Earth added together. If that document is accurate, and every verification we've been able to perform suggests it is, China has quietly accumulated the largest gold reserve in human history while reporting a fraction of their holdings to the international community. This is not about China hedging currency risk. This is about a nation positioning itself to reset the global monetary system on its own terms. Here's what they're not telling you. China's gold accumulation strategy has never been about the numbers they report. It's about the numbers they hide. The People's Bank of China updates its gold reserves when it chooses to, not on any fixed schedule. In 2009, they announced a jump from 600 tons to 1,054 tons, admitting to 6 years of secret accumulation. In 2015, they announced another jump to 1,658 tons. In 2019, after 4 years of silence, they began monthly updates showing small increases of 10 to 15 tons. Western analysts treated these announcements as data points. They built models predicting Chinese gold demand based on reported holdings. They assumed the PBOC was behaving like Western central banks, transparent, methodical, bound by international reporting norms. But China never signed the IMF's gold reporting requirements. They participate voluntarily and selectively. There is no legal obligation for them to report accurately, no audit mechanism to verify their numbers, no penalty for understatement. The leaked document explains the discrepancy. It categorizes gold holdings across 4 distinct state entities: the People's Bank of China, the official 2,264 tons, the State Administration of Foreign Exchange, 8,412 tons, China Investment Corporation, 6,847 tons, and the State Reserve Bureau, 16,291 tons. Each entity operates under different reporting requirements. Only the PBOC number flows to international statistics. The architecture is deliberate. China built a system where the right hand could accumulate gold indefinitely, while the left hand reported only what it chose to disclose. For 20 years, that system operated in complete secrecy. Last Thursday, for 47 minutes, the architecture became visible. This is where the lie becomes unsustainable. To understand what 33,814 tons means, you need to understand the scale relative to global gold markets. Total above-ground gold in the world is approximately 212,000 tons. That includes jewelry, industrial applications, private investment, and central bank reserves. Of that total, central banks collectively hold about 36,000 tons. The United States reports 8,133 tons. Germany reports 3,352 tons. The IMF holds 2,814 tons. If China holds 33,814 tons, they possess roughly 16% of all gold ever mined in human history. They hold more than the next 6 largest central bank holders combined. They control a position so dominant that their buying or selling decisions alone can move global prices by double-digit percentages. The acquisition timeline tells us this wasn't a recent decision. To accumulate 31,550 tons beyond their official reserves, even at an aggressive pace of 2,000 tons per year, would require 15 years of continuous buying. The document's metadata suggests entries dating back to 2008. China has been running this operation since before the global financial crisis. The sources of acquisition are equally revealing. The document references purchases through the Shanghai Gold Exchange, direct mine acquisitions in Africa and South America, off-market deals with Western central banks, and scrap recycling programs that appear to involve purchasing gold jewelry from Chinese citizens at prices above market. For 15 years, China absorbed gold from every available source, while the market assumed they were minor players. Every ton that entered China never left. Export of gold by Chinese nationals is functionally prohibited. The country operates as a gold black hole. Material flows in, nothing flows out. When nations accumulate what China has accumulated, they're not hedging, they're preparing. The document's cover memo, translated from Mandarin, contains a phrase that should concern every dollar holder on Earth. Strategic reserves sufficient to support monetary transition at leadership's discretion. Monetary transition. At leadership's discretion. This is not the language of portfolio management. This is the language of system change. At 8:30 a.m. Beijing time on Friday, less than 28 hours after the leak, the PBOC issued a statement calling the document fabricated disinformation designed to destabilize international confidence in China's financial reporting. They did not provide alternative figures. They did not open their vaults to verification. They did not address any of the specific entities or acquisition channels mentioned in the document. The denial was notable for what it didn't say. It didn't say the number was wrong. It said the document was fabricated. In intelligence analysis, that's a meaningful distinction. A denial that attacks the source rather than the content often indicates the content is accurate, but the source is embarrassing. Within 72 hours of the denial, 3 things happened that suggest official panic. First, China's State Council announced an immediate halt to all gold export licenses, a restriction that technically shouldn't matter if they weren't planning to move metal across borders. Second, the Shanghai Gold Exchange extended settlement times from T+2 to T+5, citing administrative improvements, a delay that would allow the government to intercept any large transactions. Third, the head of SAFE's Precious Metals Division was placed on medical leave without prior announcement. He hasn't been seen publicly since. These are not the actions of a government dismissing a fabrication. These are the actions of a government in damage control mode. Less than 14 days remain before the Chinese New Year holiday begins on January 29th. During this period, Chinese markets close for 7 days and government communications go minimal. If Beijing intended to address the leak with transparency, they would do so before the holiday. Their silence suggests they're running out the clock, hoping the story fades before they have to confirm or deny with specificity. While one side denies, the other side calculates. The implications of 33,814 tons, if accurate, restructure every assumption about global monetary power. The United States has claimed monetary hegemony partly based on holding the world's largest gold reserve. At 8,133 tons, American gold represents about 4% of global supply. It backs nothing officially, but its existence underlies confidence in the dollar as a store of value. Nixon may have closed the gold window in 1971, but the gold never left Fort Knox. Its psychological weight remains. If China holds 4 times the American reserve, that psychological weight shifts. The question, who has the gold, is not academic. In a monetary crisis, a dollar collapse, a treasury default, a loss of reserve currency status, the nation holding the most gold has the most options. They can back a new currency. They can settle international debts. They can anchor a replacement system. For 20 years, analysts assumed a gold-backed yuan was impossible because China didn't have enough gold. They calculated that backing even a fraction of yuan in circulation would require reserves China didn't possess. Those calculations used the official number, 2,264 tons. At 33,814 tons, the math changes completely. China could announce a partial gold backing, say 10% of M1 money supply, and have sufficient reserves with room to spare. They could settle Belt and Road debts in gold-backed instruments. They could offer commodity exporting nations a gold convertible alternative to dollars that America cannot match. This is the monetary transition the document references, not a prediction, a capability, a loaded weapon waiting for the moment Beijing decides to fire. The response from the West tells you they understand the stakes. The Treasury Department has not commented on the leak, unusual silence for a document this consequential. The Federal Reserve has not commented. The IMF, which theoretically oversees global reserve reporting, has said only that they are seeking clarification from Chinese authorities. Behind that silence, calculations are running. If China has $4.1 trillion in gold, their total foreign reserves exceed $7 trillion, not the $3.2 trillion officially reported. That changes their capacity to defend the yuan. It changes their resilience to sanctions. It changes the credibility of every threat Washington might make about financial warfare. Russia found its dollar reserves frozen in 2022. If China's true reserves are 60% gold stored domestically, that weapon doesn't work against them. You cannot freeze gold sitting in vaults beneath Beijing. You cannot sanction metal that never enters the Western financial system. This is what preparation looks like. Not public threats, not diplomatic confrontation, just quiet accumulation, year after year, until the balance of power shifts so fundamentally that the old rules no longer apply. Some will dismiss the leak as propaganda, as disinformation designed to rattle markets, as too extraordinary to be credible. They'll note that 33,814 tons would require purchases averaging 1,500 tons annually for 2 decades, far exceeding visible market flows. But those flows assume China purchased through transparent channels. The document suggests otherwise. Direct purchases from mining companies, off-market deals with central banks seeking liquidity, scrap programs that turned millions of gold necklaces and bracelets into state reserves, flows invisible to COMEX, invisible to the LBMA, invisible to every Western price discovery mechanism. The market sees what it's allowed to see. China has spent 20 years ensuring the market saw only what served Chinese interests. Others will study the document, will cross-reference the entity structures against known Chinese state organizations. We'll analyze the metadata, the formatting, the bureaucratic language that's either genuine or an extraordinarily sophisticated forgery. We'll notice that the numbers, while shocking, are internally consistent, that the acquisition timeline matches China's foreign exchange surpluses, that the source categories align with known Chinese mining investments, that the totals reconcile with global production statistics that always showed more gold mined than could be accounted for. The informed are not debating whether the document is real. They're calculating what it means if it is. What 33,814 tons means is simple. The nation that holds the manufacturing base, the rare earth monopoly, the largest population, and the second largest economy also holds the largest gold reserve in history. The nation that has publicly criticized dollar hegemony has privately accumulated the resources to end it. This is not financial advice. This is not a recommendation to buy gold or sell dollars or take any specific position. This is simply an observation about what 47 minutes of server exposure revealed about 20 years of strategic patience. The official number is 2,264 tons. The leaked number is 33,814 tons. One of those numbers is what China wants the world to believe. The other is what China has actually done. The document is gone from the server. The denial has been issued. The holiday clock is running. Beijing is betting that the world will accept the official number because the alternative is too destabilizing to acknowledge. They may be right. The financial system runs on confidence, and some truths are too threatening to confirm. But the document existed. For 47 minutes, the architecture was visible, and once seen, the implications cannot be unseen. 33,814 tons. $4.1 trillion. Strategic reserves sufficient for monetary transition. The number changes everything. The only question is whether the world is ready to do the math.